At Deutsche Bank, we've been working on open banking initiatives for quite some time. It started out in our retail division, primarily driven by what's happening in the European world around PSD2. But in the last 6 to 12 months, we really started focusing on open banking in our corporate and in our peer banking world. And really what it is about opening up Deutsche Bank systems and solutions to third parties, our clients, as well as partners and potentially competitors as well. Well, I think the same benefits that applies to consumers in open banking also applies to corporates in the sense that they can do easier integration of banking services into their own systems, into their ERP systems, get easier access to data that we hold about their accounts and their beneficiaries. I think reality is that the UK has probably been leading from an openness and encouraging a lot of collaboration, especially with FinTechs. But when you look at Asia, specifically Singapore and here in Australia as well, I think that the regulators are really pushing hard for banks and the whole financial ecosystem to start collaborating more. So I think that we're sort of all in the same boat. I wouldn't say one country is further ahead than others, but what we are seeing is an interesting development where the regulators are starting to come together, understanding that in this world of open banking across borders, not a single bank or a single regulator can actually accomplish what needs to be accomplished. It's a good question around PSD2 because I think that what happened in Europe was a little bit that the regulator was sort of dragging banks a little kicking and screaming to the table about you need to open your systems, etc. I think what's happening in the corporate world is very different, where we are not waiting for regulation to come tell us how things should be done. We do believe fundamentally at Deutsche Bank that an open banking ecosystem is beneficial both for our clients and for us. I think on the regulatory side, I also believe that the regulator actually plays a positive role here. We don't see it us versus a regulator. We look at this of saying we actually see it as a competitive advantage of doing business in so many countries where we are regulated. So it's going to be a collaboration over the next many years as we figure this out. When I look at my colleagues in the industry and what we spoke about on the panel, it was pretty much what we expected around how banks are trying to come together and figuring out the business models. I think maybe the area that is a little bit of surprising is that I think there's still a lot of reluctance in the financial services industry to open up systems because we don't know what that means. And I think the biggest surprise was maybe a little bit how slow we move when I think that the world is probably going to move so fast either next to us or underneath us, that if we don't speed this up, somebody else will do it for us. The key takeaway here is that a lot of people talk about open banking and talk about data and monetization of data, but I have found very few examples that are live today on how that's actually being implemented and what benefit it has to customers. So I think this time at Sibos, it seems to be very focused on collaboration amongst banks and between banks and their clients, which has been a positive message here at Sibos. I don't think that I can name one big thing. Recently, Deutsche Bank published a regulatory white paper talking about 4 trends that we believe that really will help shape banking in the future. And it's really distributed ledger, big data, the use of public cloud, and of course artificial intelligence. Of all of this, I actually would say that the open banking, where banks become more of a platform player, is the one that has the biggest potential to change the business and the business model in the financial services industry.